Instagram. Um, and let me double check. Are we live? Are we live? Checking to see if we are live. Okay, perfect. Hey. Okay, so today's topic, I am speaking with my friend Lucretia, all the way from Chicago. This is what I love about the internet, okay? And her journey of self love. And so the particular topic, which I need to put here on Instagram, is Lucretia gave me a quote because I always have my guest, as you know, if you've watched Single You, the podcast recording before, is I send them a questionnaire and they fill out the questionnaire. And one of the like quotes that she gave me, and I'm like, this is gonna be the topic of the episode. Here we go. Is Lucretia said, I thought that if I did girlfriend things, men who I dated would eventually choose to be with me. So we are going to dissect that, go deeper in that, and talk about her journey from removing herself from that mindset. So my name is Rika, and as you know, I'm the host of Single You, the podcast, and I am on a mission, okay, to help women stop believing that their value is in getting a man. Like, I am only valuable once I have the ring, once I have the husband. That is not true. Nobody said that. God did not say that. And I speak specifically to women of faith who grew up in church and unfortunately were groomed and trained to believe that the only way you hold water in this world, the only way that you hold weight in this world is by having a man. So, anyway, with that all said, let me put this on Instagram, the topic, and then we'll get started here. Now, Lucretia is live with me on Facebook. And so if you're on Instagram, you're not going to be able to see her. You will be able to hear her, but you will not be able to see her. So if you want to see her, you're going to have to go to my Facebook page, and the link is in my Instagram bio. Okay. All right. So give me a like 2 seconds, and I'm going to type this. Isn't that? It's always the worst angle when you're trying to type on Instagram. All right. If I did. And then I always have to see if I spell everything right. Things men who I dated would eventually dated would. I hate that Instagram doesn't let you copy paste. Would eventually choose to be with me. Did I spell everything right? I thought that if I did girlfriend things, men who I dated. Okay. Let's pin that comment. And what's up, Facebook? Can you hear me? Can you just type, I can hear you in the chat, please? Okay. And for some reason, Instagram is not letting me pin this comment, but there it is. Okay. All right. So on Facebook, if you can type, I can hear you in the chat, that would be great. I assume you can. And then on Instagram, I know you can hear me. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Rika. Welcome to the live recording of Single You, the podcast. Today's guest, her name is Lucretia, and she's coming from Chicago. Now, she's the host of the Girl Behind the Hustle podcast, and I had the pleasure of being on her podcast. And usually when I am on somebody else's platform, I try to stay in touch. I definitely want to get to know them because then I'm like, girl, let me reciprocate. Do you want to be on my podcast as well? And so I'm excited to have you on the show today, Lucretia. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl.
Hey, happy Sunday. Look at you. You look
Girl,
cute with the
happy
little
Sunday.
lipstick.
You look cute. I'm loving that purple.
Thank you. And how is Chicago today? I know you were saying the weather was getting a little.
The weather's, it's being real Chicago-ish.
Yeah.
This is just the season.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I gotta say, when I lived in Indianapolis, I did radio there for 5 years. When I tell you we was in Chicago every 5 minutes, only in the summertime though, because
mhm.
the winters. No way. No way. I'm trying to get away from winter right now, living in Washington State. And so I never went in the wintertime, but when I did go to Chicago, I had a great time. So I love your city.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. It's always a
yeah.
good time here.
Yay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the episode. I love to say that, there are things that we say to our friends and things that we may post and women empowerment stuff. But I don't ever feel like there are moments where we have deep conversations about what we're actually saying. So even when I post something like a video, something empowering that I think is empowering, and somebody says, "Oh, girl," or they give me the 100 or the heart or whatever, I always say, "Oh, what resonated with you?"
Yeah.
Or what do you mean by that? What does that mean to you? Because I want to get to the root of it, like the deeper stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I feel like Single You the podcast is about. And we about to get all up in your
You finna get
gut.
in my business? So
Yeah,
you like let me know, just so
yeah.
you know, girl. We about to
Yes,
get
exactly. So you are allowed to be as honest as you want to. And you share whatever you are comfortable with. But I appreciate you for filling out the questionnaire and having this conversation with me today. So, the first question that I always ask all of my guests on Single You the podcast is, did anyone ever have a conversation with you about what makes a healthy relationship versus unhealthy?
I don't think I got that healthy relationship versus unhealthy. I think I got a lot of the unhealthy. So a lot of the look out for this, don't do this, men do this, but never the opposite of, okay, if this is all the bad, what's the good that I should look for? I never got that aspect of it. I just got the negative.
And why do you think that was? Was this coming from your parents? Was this coming from church? Was this coming from friends? Like who was that coming from?
From my parents. Yeah, from my parents, mainly my father. And
Really? Dad? Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
mainly my
Okay.
father. And I think with him, when he would sit me and my sisters down, it would just be very much so um, a lot of fear conversations. And I think from his aspect, what he was doing was trying to protect us. I think it was always from like, I want to protect you from these things. So this is what you look out for. But then, it's always the what you look out for, but it was never the on the opposite end, this is the good part, right? And so I think missing that, this is the good part, that then during life I had to figure out, okay, what was the good part that I should be looking for?
And so when you're hearing this as a young girl and then you get into your 20s, what kind of mindset do you think that shaped for you?
Hmm. You know, I think it was one of those let me just figure it out mindsets that I had, especially in my 20s. I think it was more so me just trying to figure it all out. And so I would look, of course, now we call it red flags. Like that's the big thing that we're always saying now. So, of course, I would look for the red flags. And even, now when you see on social and things like that, you always hear about the red flags. But what about the green flags? What are those good parts? I think more conversations about the good needs to happen. You're muted, Rika.
I have to remember to unmute myself. I do that for the feedback. Um, so I know that you had said that, especially in your 20s and maybe up until about a year ago, because December was really like your moment of like, okay, 180 pivot from our conversations that we had. But I remember, and I'm going to read your quote. Hold on. This is why I do the
Don't quote me,
question.
girl.
Yeah, right, exactly, exactly. So you wrote, I felt like men and relationships were optional and unnecessary. So before I even go on to the rest of the quote, which is scrolling on the screen here, which is the topic of the episode, what did you mean by that? Who was that, Lucretia?
Mm, who is that, Lucretia?
Yeah.
That Lucretia was focused on self. I was all about me. I was all about my career. And so I felt like when you're thinking about even like a cake or a sundae, like the relationship was the cherry on top. I didn't want the relationship or the man to be my entire life. And so thinking about how I spent my 20s, I was in a long-term relationship with my child's father, and I spent my 20s all about the relationship. And for no fault of his, it was what I chose to do. And I feel like within that relationship, I forgot about the things that were most important to me and things that mattered to me. And so then when I hit that point, I'm like, relationships are optional. I don't need to be in a relationship. If I choose to be with someone, then that's the choice I make. But I felt like they were optional and mostly unnecessary for the things that I wanted to accomplish.
And then you went from that to thinking, you know what? I'll just be his girlfriend and I'll do girlfriend things, thinking that he will pick me, right? Because
Mhm.
how old were you around that
I
mindset
was still
time?
about late 20s, early
Okay.
30s. I was still when I was in that particular situation. And then, you know what, even coming out of that long term relationship, when I started, dating people, but not dating. I think we talked about like the pretense that I was dating under. I wasn't really being honest, right? And so because of that, it led me into situations where I was acting like a girlfriend, although I was not a girlfriend because that's not the agreement that I had with those people who I was with. But I was thinking, okay, well, if I do girlfriend things and we have this relationship and all of these things, then of course this is going to bloom into a relationship. He's going to want to be with me.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like that's the formula that a lot of women have at first, right? We just think, oh, I can just like prove to him that I'm this good woman. I can do these girlfriend things. And then eventually he'll turn around and pick me
Hmm.
because I need this relationship to feel valuable. Do you feel like you were in that space when you were thinking that? Like, oh, I need this relationship because this is what people do. This is what makes me valuable. Do you feel like that was the mindset you had?
I don't think so. I wasn't in that mindset. I feel like I knew my value. I knew
Okay.
I was valuable.
Uh huh.
I was more so in the mindset of now that I'm ready. So we talked about what my old mindset was, right?
Yeah.
And so when I start transitioning into, okay, I see the value in being in a relationship with someone, I see the value in having a man as a partner and all of
Yeah.
those things, and I see the good. Now it was okay. Now I want that, right? And so now that I want that, I want it with this particular person, but not necessarily vetting that person and looking at them like, I'm judging it based on what we've had, but
Mhm.
is that person good for the future and for who I am now in this current mindset? So that's where I was. And so it wasn't necessarily I needed that person to see my worth or see my value. I recognized my value, but
Yeah.
I didn't see that this person didn't match up with the value that I had kind of started
Oh.
recognizing in myself.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you know, like I do deserve this, but you were not thinking that. But can this guy give that to me? Does he match my energy? Is he suitable for me? Which is like my favorite word.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Is because, the mindset that I was dating under previously, the people who I was with, it worked. Like it worked very well. But then when you switch what you want and you're honest with yourself and what your desires are, do those people still work for what you want for your future? And I realized like this don't even match up. It doesn't make sense.
And I know that there was a point that we had talked about off air that when you were in the mindset that like, so let's go back to the men are optional, they're unnecessary, what have you. You were in a space where you had your walls up. Where do you think that come from, and what did you mean by that? Like you were super closed off, and what did that look like as you were trying to be in relationships but not really?
Yeah, and I think they were up just trying to protect myself. I think I was trying to protect myself from being vulnerable, transparent, all of those things that are a requirement when you actually want to connect with someone and be in any relationship, including friendships with people, right? Like you have to be open. And so I think I put those walls up trying to protect myself. And because of that, I was really emotionally unavailable. And from being emotionally unavailable, I attracted emotionally unavailable men, and so that's why it was that transition where I'm like, okay, now I want more, but you can't get more from a person just because you're all of a sudden emotionally available does not mean that now that man is going to be emotionally available because you're ready.
And even in these like two, because in my mind I'm visualizing like two different Lucretias, right? And that's okay. And we all have ebb and flows and we all have journeys, and you're different from when you're in your 20s and your 30s and 40s and whatnot. But in both spaces where one, you were men are unnecessary, they're optional, what have you, and then you were ready for a relationship, but you were dating under, I guess, false pretenses. Was that frustrating for you?
Yeah, it was for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like although I was ready, I don't think I necessarily have verbalized it,
Yeah.
right? And so some of the people who I was dating at that time, we had already had an agreement. Like we have a verbal agreement that this is going to be casual, this is going to be light, this is going to be fun. And so it's like I changed and now I want this. So now it's like, okay, well, I have to break the agreement that we had. And either you're going to come along with what I now want, or for me, just being open, willing to walk away from whatever that was. And so that was the struggle when you just have to say, this is what I want. I'm not willing to compromise on what I want. And either you want the same thing or, that's okay, goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that causes a lot of frustration because I hear what you're saying. You're in this relationship, and I'm doing air quotes, with this guy under the pretense of, oh, we don't want nothing serious. We just going to be, friends with benefits or whatever you guys called it. But then deep down inside, Lucretia wanted a relationship. You came to that realization and you tried to make him become what you wanted him to be. Is that true? Am I hearing you correctly? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so you try to get a person to kind of go along with what you want, although you guys have already come to this conclusion that this is what it's going to be.
And I remember you saying that you came to that realization that it's okay to say, Lucretia, you want a man, and that's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what is that? It's this weird thing of saying, like, I want a man. Like, I don't know. It's just some weird energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, there's two things. Let me hold on. Let me write this down before I forget my train of thought, because I this is where professional women we are. Hold on, hold on,
Yeah,
hold
it's
on.
something about like our
Yep.
independence, our
Yep.
it's something with us.
Yep.
And I don't know if we feel like maybe it makes us weak to say that. I
Yep.
don't know.
Yep.
And I know for me at least, it was a transition because I did not always want that. But then when I got to the point where I wanted that, it was just I had to be honest, like, okay, you now want this, like admit that you want these things, and like whatever doesn't align with that, let those things go and start working towards what you want.
Exactly. So oh gosh, my brain is like, I just love these conversations. So before we even go there, we're professional women, we are, and we're so, sometimes we're so bitter, we have our walls up, we don't even want to admit that we want a man. Before we even do that, these are the situations that we are in that causes toxic relationships and dysfunctional, right? Is where you were in that space of, I'm talking to this boy Johnny, and I done told him we could be friends with benefits or what have you. Then you try to turn it into a real relationship, and it doesn't work out as you wanted to, and then all of a sudden Johnny is the narcissist.
Hmm.
What, it's like, why do we do that? What is
Yeah, we
that?
put the
Yeah.
blame on the man, right?
Mhm.
And then even not even just on the man, then we put the blame on all men. Then it turns into just all men are terrible. But really, when you think about it, what did you do? Like, were you honest? Were you
Yes.
honest in your
Yes.
needs? Were you honest in your wants? Did you approach it from a good intention? Like, we don't think about all those things. And so then it turns into the I hate this man, then I hate all men, then all relationships are this. And really, the pause is where you start doing the self reflection and doing the self work and really figuring out where you went wrong and what you could have done differently in that situation. But that just takes being honest with yourself. And I feel like a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves in those situations.
Girl, now you driving down my alleyway, right? Because this is the like, what I wish, if I could sum up what I do in my program, Single You Academy, and on this podcast, is I want women to see themselves. Who are you, sis? Because it's not just him. And I'm not saying how anybody treated us was right, but I don't believe that we play a bigger role in that than we, you know what I mean? Like, we don't realize that.
Hmm.
You play, what was your position in that part?
Yeah. What did
Yeah.
you allow? Like,
Yeah.
what did you allow? You had a choice. What did you allow? What boundary did you allow to be moved out of the way? What boundary did you not set in place? Like, you had a huge part in how something went down. And so it's really thinking about what you did and what you're going to do differently in the future.
Yeah, and I just think your evolution is beautiful. So you go from that to, again, let's talk about the being the professional women that we are, right? We're so good at climbing this ladder, right?
Hmm.
Of trying to get to the bag. Like, we love saying that now. Get your coins, girl, get your bag. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We focus on professional development so much.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like then we kind of get this like bitterness because we were not getting the type of relationship that we want. So then we get this bitterness on our heart for us to not even be able to say, listen, I want a man.
Hmm.
I want a man.
Yeah, and the conversations that I've been having, I don't know if it's a bitterness. I don't know if it's a bitterness. I think it's more like a hopelessness. It's not even out there. You know what I mean? Like I feel
Yeah.
like that's a
Ooh.
hopelessness. because
Yeah.
you want
Good.
it, but you feel like it's not even available to you. It's not even out there.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like a lot of the conversation I've been having with women, like that's where they are right
Ooh,
now.
tell
Of
me
just
more about those conversations, because that hopelessness, and I hear you, and it's like, okay, so where do you think that comes from, to think like, I'm not even going to get the man that I want.
Mhm.
I'm so hopeless about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from maybe dating the wrong people. And so when you continually putting yourself in this space where you're dating the wrong people, having the wrong relationships, the wrong situations with people, instead of the right ones, right? And so when you continuously do the wrong thing, then it feels like the right thing isn't even possible. It's not even attainable at that point. And so that's where I think it transitions into that hopelessness. So a lot of conversations I've been having with people lately is, how much time are you actually dedicating towards working on relationships, towards working on finding what you want? And like you brought it up, how we are as like businesswomen, we put so much. I'm like a go-getter hustler with my career. I got my chart, my timeline, my plans. I got all of these things. I got my affirmations, my journal, my business journal. But how much time I'm actually putting into relationships? Like, can I put aside an hour a week to actually go out, be intentional about how I'm spending my time with being in spaces and places where I can actually meet someone who I would like? I wasn't doing those things, right? So if you're not doing those things, then how can you say it's not even out there when you're not even in a space to meet somebody?
Girl, exactly. And even before we get there, it's about how much time are you putting in self?
That too.
How much
It
time?
starts there.
Exactly. And it's like, how much time did you actually look back, put the mirror up, and say, you know what? I was really wrong in that situation. You know what? I fumbled my boundary in that situation. You know what? I don't even know myself.
Hmm.
And do the work there before we go out and try to, because if we don't know who we are, how do you know what you actually want?
Yeah. That's
You
so
know?
true.
Hmm.
It's like you have to know who you are to know the right person who you should be with. Like who's
Exactly.
going to compliment you. But you don't know who can compliment you unless you know who you are. You don't even know where to start. So it's always going to start with self. It always starts there.
And later on, we will get into the tangible things that you did to get yourself out of that mindset. Because one of my favorite scriptures is be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And there's so many layers to humanness, and that's why the Bible talks about, like, we're not against flesh and blood. Like this little, no, baby, we have to do spiritual work, and we have to
Hmm.
transform our mind. So your journey from going to where you were to the woman you are today is beautiful, and I want to talk about those tangible things here in a second. But first, let's talk about you, your dating now, right? So
Hmm.
what does dating, because you just said, are you putting time into dating? um so I want to hear, at this big age that we are now, what time are you putting into dating? How are you dating?
I feel like I'm dating more intentionally now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very intentional.
Yeah.
And I think with starting with looking at who I was and what I needed and what I wanted. So starting there, right? And so based on me starting there, the people who I even, go out with, they have to fit into certain, criteria. Essentially, it's a certain criteria. I don't waste my time, right? So if you know you're not truly interested in someone, why we sometimes do this thing where we're like, well, maybe if he just says this, or maybe if it's this little thing, like we try to fit a person for what? For what? Like, why? When
Yes.
you do those
Yes.
things, it's like you're sending a signal that what I want is not available, it's not
Ah,
attainable. So I'm going to try to mesh this person and get them to, form a different type of way to be what I want. So
yeah.
now I just feel like I'm more intentional. If I know, like, this, you could be nice and that's wonderful, but
Yeah.
you're not for me because I know what's for me. And so I always try to remember, and I think we had a conversation. I'm just like, this can't be the best that you got for me. Like when it started
Right.
feeling real stressful, I'm
Right.
like, this, Lord, this can't be the best. And I know that you have the best for me. I know you want me perfectly and wonderfully made. And if that's how you made me, I know you made
Yeah.
someone else like that for me, right?
I,
That can't be the best.
it's, oh my gosh, it's so funny, because I do want to go back to, because I want to go even deeper on the part where you said that we're always like, okay, well, maybe if he's just a little bit more this or a little less of this, then I could like him. I want to ask you, where do you think that comes from, especially maybe for you personally? And before you answer, I'll say this. I think so we're faith-based women, and I think that we believe that that is being a Christian. Like, I have to give him grace. I have to, I just have to accept everybody, and I just
Mm-hmm.
have to woo, woo, woo. My mentor and Pastor Darius Daniels always says God will let you live on whatever level you settle for. So
Mm.
it's not about, because I'm going to heaven regardless, because I believe in my heart. I confess with my mouth that Jesus died and rose on the third day. I believe in the Trinity and all that. So it's like I'm going to heaven anyway, right? Period.
Yeah.
But God wants us to live by like principles, not rules. The Bible is a principle book. It's not about rules and being perfect. But God is like, listen, if you could do a couple of these, live by these principles, I truly really want you to have heaven on earth. And I don't believe heaven on earth is saying, okay, well, Johnny, as if he would just maybe like not do this or more of this, then no. I
Yeah.
think God made somebody, and I don't believe in like one to one, but somebody who is suitable enough for me where I don't really have to do that. But anyway, now I'm rambling. Back to the question. Where do
No,
you believe that
agreed.
that comes from, of us like
Yeah.
trying to build this bear? Like, okay, well,
The Build-A-Bear
yeah,
complex for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I agree. I think it has a lot to do with Christianity and the thought of us giving grace and feeling like, okay, well, I just need to give grace because this person experienced that, and maybe that's why they're doing that, and maybe this is that. That's their story, and that's okay, but their story does not mean that it necessarily has to blend into your story. Like, give the grace. I'm sorry that you went through that, but that doesn't work for me. And then move along. Move
yeah,
along. So I think you asked me, like, okay, so what am I doing now? So just being
mhm,
more intentional with
yeah,
the time that I'm putting towards dating, making sure I'm choosing the right people, actually putting time. I think the biggest thing that has changed is the time. I'm more intentional. So maybe I set a goal that I go out like once a week, and I put myself in a space and a place where I would meet someone that's the type of person that I would want. So that's like a dedicated time that I do that. And then just being more, it's all about intentionality and the time that I'm putting towards it. Before it was
mhm.
zero.
Yeah, and I think you said there's a tip there, and I want to highlight it right now for the women that are listening. You said that you put yourself in places that would draw in the men that you actually want, right?
Hmm.
So what does that look like? Is it the club, or where you going?
I'd be everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I'd be everywhere because he may be at Trader Joe's. Like,
Facts. He may be.
you just,
Right.
yeah, I'd be everywhere.
We meet in aisle 3. What's good?
I'm at the art gallery.
Right.
Like, I like art.
Yes, yes,
At
yes.
the bookstore. It's and that's the thing too. I'm not doing anything outside of what I love. I'm doing the things I love. I'm going to Trader Joe's. I enjoy Trader Joe's. I like the art galleries. I like the bookstores. There are men everywhere. I feel like there's always this thing where it's like there's not enough good men. There's no more good men. Get off your phone, put your phone down. Like, they're everywhere. So it's not like I have to do these things where I'm doing extra. I'm living my life, and I'm just living it in a different mindset so that I'm starting to notice more things and more people around me. So they're
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, and I encourage women of faith to, because you're right. I did a whole episode with shout out to my girl C, who's a therapist, and we talked about that. Like, are there really no good men out here, or is it us? And I'm like, we're supposed to be women of faith. Where's your faith, sweetheart? And I know that in this human form, we have a timeline, especially if you want to have kids and what have you. But there's got to be, we have to just, our thoughts have to be higher, right? And we have to just realize that whatever is meant for me is going to happen. And so my mindset is, so kids is probably gonna be out of the equation here, because I'm about to be 39 in like 4 months, which I'm fine with. Like, I never really wanted kids anyway. Like, I never said I didn't want it, but I also didn't have that strong desire. So I know I'm privileged in that because I never really have the kid thought. But anyway, my mindset now is like, I have the audacity to believe that I can get what I want. And if he comes at 65, then I'm fine with that. where do you believe you are now? Do you have that same thought process? Like, listen, I'm fine. Whatever God has for me, he has for me.
Yeah, I'm definitely there. I'm in a space where I believe whatever's for me, it'll just come when it comes. I'm not pressed. I'm more focused on just living my life and just being open to it, because that was a step. The step of even saying, okay, this is what I want, making your intentions and declaring what you want. That's a big deal, right? And so just even saying, this is what I want. And when it comes, it'll come. But just even stating what my intentions are and what my desires are.
Yeah, and I remember you said it was December, right? Where you had
Mhm.
your awakening. So walk us through that. What was the awakening? What thought process did you begin this journey on?
I think it started with a conversation I was having with a friend about somebody I was dating. And she just asked me just very directly, she's like, what do you want? She's like, what do you want? And how often do you have a person ask you, what do you want? Besides going to the restaurant,
Right, I was just about to say, unless we looking at a Chinese menu and they like, what you
Right.
want, you know?
So she was like, what do you want? And so it really made me pause. I'm like, what do I want? And she's like, because I hear what you're saying, and you're saying you want this, but the way your life looks and what you're doing doesn't look like what you're saying you actually want. So she was like, how about you take some time and figure out what you want? And so that's what I did. I paused a lot. I paused dating. I even paused my business. Like there was a lot of things that I felt like weren't aligned with what I said I wanted. And especially you just get into this groove where you're just moving along. Life just keeps moving and you keep chugging along with it. And it was just one of those moments I'm like, I really do need to figure out what I want in all areas of my life.
Yeah, that is so, oh, man. And good for you for like pausing the business because again, how much time do we actually put in personal development?
Hmm.
It's we focus so much on this professional development, but we do not focus on because I think that we think because we spend 24 hours with ourselves, like we can't really leave our body, that we know who we are. But the quality of your life, there's this quote that says the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask it.
Hmm. That's good.
So how many questions have you asked yourself, just like Lucretia just said, like what do you want? What do you want? And then having the audacity to believe that you can get what you want. You say you're a woman of faith. So, where is your audacity? Flex
Hmm.
that muscle and be patient. You know, what are they oh gosh, now of course I'm going to mess the scripture up, but faith is the things that are not seen, right? And I'm gonna mess that scripture up, so I'm not even gonna try to say that. But having that faith to again have the audacity to believe that you can get what you want. So now I do want to talk about no, before we go there first, because we had a great conversation about ghosting. I have a lot of girls in my DMs, and they're always asking about how do you deal with ghosting. And you and I are on the same wavelength with this topic. And so I would love to hear from you. How do you deal with men ghosting you? How do you deal with ghosting? How do you feel about ghosting?
Yeah, so I feel like at this point in my life, like I don't think I can be ghosted because I only want the things that want me. I only want situations, places, and people who want me. And so you can't ghost me because if there's a space where, maybe I am attracted to you and maybe I do want you and things like that. But if the energy that you're giving me is not there and you're pulling your energy back, then I no longer want you. And so it's one of those things where you can't ghost me because if I only want the things that want me, if you no longer want me, then, it's one of those goodbyes. It's just like, okay, this is great. Thank you for the experience. Goodbye.
Yeah.
But I only want those things that want me and people who want me. So you can't ghost me. It's
Yeah.
it's impossible
Yeah.
because ghosting is chasing, right? Ghosting happens. I think we say ghosting happens when you're chasing something. That's usually the typical time where ghosting happens, where you want something so badly, that person doesn't want you, that thing doesn't want you, and so now you feel ghosted by that situation because you were chasing something that maybe it just wasn't for you.
Yeah. And I think ghosting is more about our ego, which is, and that's why we get so offended because how dare he not want me?
The nerve, the audacity. Like women don't deal with rejection well because we don't experience rejection. Men experience rejection from like second grade. Sending the note, circle yes or no. you
Yeah,
know, they
100%.
start chasing early, and so they deal with rejection early. We don't start into our 20s, sometimes 30s. And so the thought of a person not wanting you, that's an ego. It's all about your ego. And so you got to
100%.
have your ego in check.
100%. That ego and just and it is unfortunate because I do think one of the things that the church also did not do well, especially back in the day. I do see changes and shifts with people like Pastor Darius Daniels and I would say Stephen Furtick and kind of moving in the more teaching, preaching. But anyway, one of the things they did not teach well is the scripture that says, "He who finds a wife." So we think we're just supposed to sit here and not go to Trader Joe's and not be out and about. And also and if you want a husband, you have to also be, in my opinion, the pursuit of it. Now, I'm not saying we chase men, no, but could you at least place yourself at the feet of Boaz, just like Ruth did? Naomi told her, go get dressed, put on your lipstick, and go sit at his feet. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
still have to present. And oh gosh, what's his name? He has a podcast too, and he says that women should present and then men pursue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this world of, we're in 2022 now. I've heard from a lot of my male friends and my cousins that they are afraid to approach us because they have no idea, like, is she gonna think that I'm being rude or am I coming on too strong? And a lot of things with the Me Too, like they don't know what they're allowed to say. So I am like you and I wave and wink and whatever, especially when I'm at the airport and I'm traveling and I'm out and about in new cities. I love to do that, to let them know, like, let your guard down, sweetie. I don't have my guard up. You are allowed to approach me. So, okay. The next thing, let me see, because I'm looking at all of my notes. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Let's talk about Russell and Sierra real quick. Only because of the commentary that has been out there, honestly, since they got together, but somehow it
Yeah.
resurged, over the last couple of weeks here about how Russell is corny, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sierra only got with him because of his money. Tell me your thoughts on that.
You know, I think she met him at the right time. I think she is just one of those situations where she met him at the right time. I don't think it necessarily had anything to do with money, and that's the reason why she got with him. I also don't think that that whole dialogue about suffering before you meet the good guy. I don't think that needs to happen either with the things that she went with from her past relationships. I just feel like he came into her life at the right time. I think at any other point in her life, she might have walked past them. I don't think it had anything to do with him being corny and lame and all the things that he gets called. I just think they met at the right time. There was this picture that somebody posted on Instagram today of this guy, super attractive. I click his page. He's doing this dancing stuff. He's into like anime and video games and all this stuff. But the craziest thing is when this one person posted the video, all these comments of people saying like, "Oh my gosh, you have beautiful skin, beautiful smile, all these things," right? But when you really look at who that man is and all this other stuff, would you still want him if you were aware of all these other things about his personality? And so I just think it's one of those things where the man who Russell was at the time of the woman that Sierra was, it was just perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of truth that is not being um, put out there, right? Because, yes, a lot of women want to say, no, I would be with Russell. I would be with Russell. But really, truly, do you look at your track record and what you have allowed and dated, right? So
Hmm.
obviously we're using Future and Russell right now, but this is, you can apply this to your own personal life. But you're right. I wish that we could learn a lot faster what is suitable for us. So you didn't have to go through, because it's a classic case of we pick the bad boys and then we get with the good guy, right?
Yep.
And I do think it's unfair for men to be like, well, if he didn't have money, she wouldn't be with him or what have you. They're on a whole different level that we don't even have to think about. But what I will say, I think it's unfair to think that women like our taste doesn't change. Like we have to have the same, like I'm only attracted to this type. There we go. I'm only attracted to this type. And then I can no longer ever be attracted to somebody like Russell Wilson. When you grow and you change and you figure out who you are and you know what type of relationship you want, like you and I have been saying, we're super intentional with what we want. We know what we want. Yes, of course, your taste is going to change. And I saw a video of somebody asking Russell, how did you, basically get Sierra? And he was like, he basically went on to say that he told her that I am going to be extremely intentional. I'm intentional with you, and that is not going anywhere. And I feel like at this big age that we are, that's what we want. It's just
Mhm.
intention, bro. Like,
Yeah,
if you want to be with me, you're going to have to come with intention because I do.
exactly.
And yeah, and unfortunately, uh like you said, a lot of women think that there are no good men out here. A lot of men think there are no good women out here, and I think that has to do with a lot of who we are allowing to move our culture, especially when it comes to relationships. I don't want to name no names because I hate mentioning him on my podcast,
You don't get no
but
free promo over here.
right, exactly. Him and like the whole like red pill society and all of that. Like you said, get off your phone and go out and meet real human beings
Yeah,
and stop listening to these people who are trying to tell you what a high value man is and all of that. So,
agreed.
yeah, yeah.
Agreed for sure.
Okay, so now let's get into the moment your friend asked you that, what do you want, Lucretia? What were the things that you did to pull that out of yourself, right? We call it doing the work.
Hmm.
What are tangible things that you did to do the work to transform your mind essentially?
I prayed a lot. I prayed, meditated, prayer, meditation, journaling, um, lots of walks, just spending that time with myself by myself. So spending solo time, doing the things that I enjoy, kind of just feeding into myself a lot more. And so in those moments of pause, moments of stillness, asking myself those questions like, what do you want? What does that look like? What does your ideal relationship look like? What does your ideal life look like? Those things, and then writing it down. I'm big on writing things down, so that you can go back and once it happens, you can see that this is exactly what you asked for. So all of those things led me to what exactly I wanted. And also, you know what I also did? Once I realized what I wanted, the type of relationship I wanted, and things like that, I sought out relationships that looked like that. So not in a relationship goals way, because I hate that, but more in a I see you have a healthy relationship. What did you do? How did you guys meet? What were those moments where you questioned if that person was for you? So I started asking people those questions, hanging out with people in healthy relationships. Surrounding yourself with the things that you want is so important. Being around people that have the things that you want and just sitting at their feet and asking questions.
Take an inventory. I love
Hmm.
that, of the people who I always say this too. It is I never take advice or quote unquote relationship goals from people, number one, that I don't know, and then
Hmm.
also who aren't living the actual life that I want to live.
Exactly.
Because we're not on the same path and everybody has a different path and everybody's allowed to choose what they think is best for them. But what I want, I am only going to seek advice and counsel through those people. The Bible
Yeah.
talks about having wise counsel.
Yep.
So it would be wise of me to ask the people that I see doing the thing that I want to do. And we don't do that enough. We're just
Hmm.
watching Jay-Z and Beyonce, or again the Red Pill Society, and taking in what they say relationships should be like.
Yeah, and it's not real.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel real,
Yeah.
And then I feel like when you're listening to those type of people, it does that's where the hopelessness comes from and the
Yeah.
feeling of it's not attainable.
Yeah.
And because what they're offering you isn't attainable, like
Yeah.
it's set up against you. I feel like the
Yeah.
way they offer it and put it out there, like it feels like it's against you. So
Yeah.
really asking people who are actually out here doing those things and talking to them and just asking the questions that
Yeah.
made it feel attainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there was something I was gonna ask you that you said. Hold on. Give me a minute. Um, oh dang. What did you say? I cannot remember what you said, and it was a question following the journaling and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Journaling, meditating, talking to people, doing the work.
Develop. Yeah. Okay, there it goes. That's fine. If I think of it as this, we're wrapping up here, then I'll ask. But oh, yep, there it is. So now that you've done this work
Mm-hmm.
and you know what Lucretia wants now, do you feel like you're solid in that? You know what you want?
I feel
Okay.
it's solid, but at the
Yeah.
same time, nothing in my life, I feel like nothing's ever truly solid. Like it's
Right, right, right. It's
solid,
a
but I'm
journey.
open to a
Yeah.
wave.
Yeah.
If a wave comes, then I'm
Yeah.
flowing. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
God's gonna decide what God want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. And so my follow-up question for that was, how are you going to continue? Because sometimes I think we can do this, right? And say, I want this. And I think a lot of women are good at saying the type of man that they want. I think we're great. But then we fumble our boundaries and
Hmm.
we settle, right? Because again, you think it's not attainable. So how do you feel like you are going to keep sharpening that iron, if you will? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To stay on the path of getting what you actually want.
Yeah, so even with you saying iron, like iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so who's holding you accountable?
Yeah.
Either you got to hold yourself accountable. And so I journal it down. So I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you, Rika. So,
Yes, please. Yes.
okay, let's just be honest. So I wrote down exactly what I wanted. Um, and I wrote it down, right? I wrote these qualities down and all these different things and aspects down, right? I review it. It's not one of those things that you write it down and then you tuck it away and you never see it. I review it. And so even sometimes when I'm in those modes, I'm like, is this person right for me? Is this, when you start getting that tinkering, your intuition, women have the tendency to ignore our intuition. Our intuition is a gift. That is like a gift, okay? You have to trust that thing. And when you ignore it and when you don't follow through on it, you lose it. The more that you trust your intuition, it gets stronger and stronger. And so when my intuition starts telling me like, oh no, girl, this ain't what you had said, I pull out my book and I look at my book and I say, is this person this? Do they do this? Is it this? And once I see that, it's a clear no. So at that point, I have this staring in my face. So either I'm gonna hold myself accountable to what I said I wanted, or I'm gonna fumble my boundaries. Like you have a choice. And then also just communicating to friends. This is what I want. These are some things that I'm looking for. And so then they hold me accountable. Well, Lucretia, that's not what you said. That's not what you said. This is not looking like what you said you wanted. And so having those things in place, like those checkpoints in place, those are really helpful for me.
That is so good that you say you review it. Girl, do you I'm sure nobody does this. Maybe I'm the weirdo. But after like uh do we still call it talking when you're getting to know a guy or whatever?
I date or we in a relationship. I don't know what
Right.
that talking stage is. Have you
Yeah.
seen that chart, Rika? It stresses
No.
me out.
I Oh, yes, I have, where it's like
talking,
it's
talking
so
with
many like
benefits,
levels. Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
benefits, all these things. I don't know what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, for me, I'm like, if we getting to know each other phase, I get it. We have to, it's the, um, not really what's your favorite color because I don't ask that anymore. I have deeper questions. But if after 2 months we have not moved past that, then I'm done. But when that does happen, and when I am having those moments of, well, okay, maybe if he changes this, I journal all of that. And then when it ends, I go back and review that just so I can see
Mm,
like my track record. And I wanted to see how quick I was getting at cutting people off. I have a timeline of like, oh,
yeah.
that was only 6 weeks. Okay, cool. Like, good job. Instead of, because I remember you said this, like, you used to overstay your welcome.
Woo, overstayed. Girl, get your bag and go.
It, the ba-
I say
he,
so many, I overstay so many welcomes. So many, so many. If he just does this, or this isn't this bad, or I would get another person to compliment and kind of like make up for the things that this person wasn't doing. So then it didn't bother me because you're not doing it, but this guy's doing it. So this is great. I'm getting what I want. Yeah, too many
yeah.
overstayed welcomes. And so I love that you do that with journaling and seeing how fast. And that's a checkpoint for me too. I
Mhm.
realize now, I'm like, I cut that off in a month. Whoa, girl, that's great. You saw that? Whoa, good for you. Like, I love this me.
I
Like,
love it,
I
and it's
love
like,
how quick I'm like leaving
yeah,
situations now.
because the back and forth is, oh well, I hate
Mhm.
that so much. Like, I just feel like God is not a God of confusion.
Yes.
So I just have a rule for me. If I'm confused, I bounce.
Yeah.
He's not suitable for me.
Yep.
And and that's okay, especially because it becomes easier once you do the work and you no longer have this fear that a lot of women have of dying alone, right?
Mhm.
I don't even know what that means. First of all, my parents have been married for over 40 years. They're gonna die separate. Maybe that's alone. I don't know, but
Right.
and I'm working on my 401k and my Roth IRA so I can make sure I have whatever I need by the time I do get to 75. And if I have ailments and all that, like I get that. Like, you don't want to be alone in that process. But anyway, when you don't have this fear of, oh my gosh, if I speak up for myself, he's gonna walk away. Oh my gosh, I'm afraid of dying alone. Oh my gosh, I'm 42, I'm single, and I gotta go to this 4th of July barbecue, and all my aunties are gonna ask me where your man at. Once you can get rid of that fear, and I will say this, it's not like it goes away. For me, it's still kind of fleeting sometimes, but I have the audacity again to believe that I want, and I'm so strong now in what I want. My iron is sharpened that I just push past the fear. What's that
Mhm.
meme talking about? Do it afraid.
Yeah,
Do
do
it
it
afraid.
anyway. Do it afraid, do it anyway. Yep.
And so when you are, I just want and I encourage women to do the work. That personal development piece is so important. And honestly, it's like this personal development has helped me in my career and helped me in other areas of my life. Yeah, the focus was I need to transform the way I think about myself as a single woman, but it has helped so many other layers of my life. And when you get to that point and you know exactly what you want, you're able to say yes, no, I'm not, you know what, that's not suitable for me. You know what, I really don't have the capacity for that right now. Like, that's my favorite sentence. I don't have
Mhm.
the capacity for this right now, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, so is there anything, let me look at my notes, um that we missed. I know I had a question and I wish I would have written it down. Is Oh, this is what she said. And this is the last question I'll ask, and then we'll wrap it up. When you are having those moments, and Lucretia, maybe it's fleeting for you, but we do crave intimacy as humans, right? The physical
Mhm.
touch and all of that. How are you does that still happen for you? And how are you pushing past that to not lean into the flesh? Like, how do you handle those nights when you're like, dang, if if he was here, if he would just come and he would just, because men are sexy and men are fine, and
Men
men,
are fine.
especially black men. Lord
Girl, Lord,
Jesus.
did you see Lorenz Tate this week?
Listen, I did not, but maybe you need to send me a pic.
Baby.
Listen, I just be like, God, like, I
Lord.
love black men, I do, and they are beautiful. Um, how do you handle that piece of not inviting him over and let him stay too late?
Hmm. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I just haven't been in that space for so long.
Good, good, good.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I
Yeah.
just feel like I try not to put myself in those positions.
There we go.
Um, with the things that I know are not meant to serve me,
Yeah.
right? With those people who I feel like I know it's a no, and I know there's nothing more that you can give me than that. Why am I allowing you back into my space? So with those particular people, I just try not to allow them back into my space at all. They don't have access to me even. They don't have access to me. And so, I mean, with new people that I'm dating, I mean, I move a little differently, but I feel like your question, are you asking like about past situations with allowing those people back in?
No, no, no. I mean, like, now, do you ever have those moments of like, dang, this is, because this single life, I, I don't ever want to lie, at least for me, and this may not be for you, but I don't ever want to lie and say, oh, I never feel lonely. Oh, I never wish I had a dude laying next to me. Oh, I never did. I do. I just know that where that lane and those choices have gotten me before. So I just don't do it now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be, we all know the definition of insanity, right? So I just know now, like, yeah, he fine. Yeah, he calling me. Yeah, whatever, but he can't come over after 9. And actually, now that we're quicker of like knowing he's not suitable, it's really just that it makes it easier. So that's what I was asking. Like, now that you've done the work, do you ever still have those moments of loneliness, and then how do you handle it?
I feel like I may not. I don't think I've had one of those situations yet. I just don't feel like I've had one of those situations. I don't know. I haven't felt lonely in quite some time. And I know
Good.
exactly what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
I just haven't felt it in a while.
That's
That don't mean
beautiful.
it ain't gonna come back around.
Right. Right. Because
But
everything
I
ebb and
haven't
flows.
felt it in a while. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like what have I been doing differently that I
Mhm.
haven't been feeling that feeling. Um Gosh, I spend a lot of time with myself. I spend a
Yeah.
lot of time doing things that I love.
Hmm.
But yeah, you do sometimes have those moments of craving like intimacy with
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
But I mean, at what layer and in what intensity do you need to be intimate? Like, can
Yeah.
you just go on a date? Like, is
Yeah.
that enough? Like, that sometimes fills my cup. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily have to be like fully, like, what intimacy is to you. I think
Yeah.
that's a question too. Like, at what level does it have to be physical intimacy?
Right. No, and I think that is a good question, because I do think that when we hear the word intimacy, we think sex. We just automatically go to sex, and that's
Hmm.
not it. I think once
Yeah,
you do the work, you realize like it's way deeper than that. And I
yeah.
need I need an emotional connection before I would ever do a physical connection again. Because I think I told you on your podcast, like I'm in June, it'll be 3.5 years abstinence. So yay me. um, but because I know, like, if I do this, a week from now, I'm gonna like be so mad at myself for faltering.
Mm,
And so, yeah, you're right. I think part of the work also is understanding what intimacy is for you, because it's not the sex that we're really seeking. It's not that. It's that
yeah,
connection. And how do we get that? So,
yeah.
all right. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that I forgot to ask you? Anything that we talked about off air that we need to mention here before we close out?
I don't think I feel like you hit them all.
Yeah, I
I
did,
feel
because
like
I'm
you hit
taking
them
I'm
all.
taking notes. Are we okay? So, all right, girl. Well, I appreciate you so much for being on the podcast. I will put a link to the girl behind the hustle in my podcast notes, and also your Instagram, for them to reach out to you. Is that okay? If they want to follow you, just to have another woman in their circle who's living this single life. Well, I want to say correctly, I guess. Yeah. So I'll put all of that in the link
Okay,
in the
thank you
show
so
notes. So
much. This has been great.
yes,
Thanks for having me on your platform.
yes, and thank you, Nicole, for watching. Hey, Tahiri. All right, so I am going to end. Oops, end broadcast. All right, guys. So I'm gonna take this down, just so you know. I always take it down and then I edit it up and put it on the podcast. So, Single You the podcast. Don't forget to go subscribe to that. And so when this episode drops on Thursday, I'm probably gonna cut it up into into 2 episodes. So when it drops, then you can go listen and you can share with your friends and all of that. Thank you for listening. Oh, thanks for the hearts. Is it the K ways? What's up, girl? All right. Bye. Let's exit out of here and in the broadcast here.